So, once upon a time, there was this man, and his name was Billy-bob Jedidia. And Billy-bob Jedidia was an old man and a farmer, and he he lived on this farm in this cul-de-sac at the top of a hill, and Billy-bob Jedidia, he lived in this really big house and all this stuff, and kids were scared of Billy-bob Jedidia because he had scary stuff like scarecrows in his crops and corn, because they didn't like vegetables because they were just little kids. But anyways, Billy-bob Jedidia was this crazy old man, and every Halloween they passed by his house because they said stuff like, "Oh, legend has it, if you go knock on old man Jedidia's door, that's what they call the old man Jedidia's door. You he'll steal you, he'll take you, and he'll cut you up into little bitty pieces and serve you as candy." And they were just so scared because old man Jedidiah was just a strange man to them. They didn't understand him, so naturally, kids, they have a tendency to do stuff like that. Anyways, one day old man Jedidiah came out to get his newspaper, and he was just in his bathrobe and his pajama bottom pants, and he came out, and all the kids saw him. He walked through his driveway, and he picked up the newspaper, and all the kids saw him, and he was just drinking his coffee, and they were scared. They looked at him on their bikes, and because it was morning time, and they were on their bikes, and they were like, "Oh guys, this old man Jedidiah is coming out of his house." And old man Jedidiah just kind of stood there. He just looked at him, and the kids were like, "This old man Jedidiah." Old man Jedidiah was just like, because he didn't know what was going on. He didn't even know about these friggin' stories about it. But anyways, old man Jedidiah he got his paper, and he went back in his house with his coffee, and those kids, they were never the same again until old man Jedidiah went back in his house, and he closed the door and he locked it behind him, and the kids were like, "Oh, did you see that? Old man Jedidiah, old man Jedidiah this, old man Jedidiah that." It was crazy, and Billy-bob Jedidiah, he was just a guy, He didn't do anything to anybody, but legend has it he did, because they said stuff. They heard that their parents told him, "Oh, don't go around old man Jedidiah, because he does crazy experiments in his house. He's just a mad scientist man," and they said he made like this monster in his house that eats people and stuff like that, and kids would go trick or treating over there and they went missing or something, and the next day that same Halloween, that night, the other kids came and he served them like weird candy that was like people, but they didn't know, so they ate it, and they were like, "This tastes weird," but they were like, little did they know it was their little friend Jimmy from down the street that they were eating as candy, because old man Jedidiah was this crazy guy. But anyways, they said that old man Jedidiah made this crazy monster, and the monster's name was Bob Billy Bill. Bob Billy Bill was this crazy huge monster that eats things that you shouldn't be eating. Like no normal person would eat them. Like crazy stuff, like a possum, like raw, like not even like cooked by. People do eat that. It's not like, no offense to anybody that does, but like seriously, this monster ate it raw, and he ate dogs and cats, and that's pretty crazy. I mean, they do that in like Asia or something, but it's not a custom for Americans, which is where this takes place, by the way, to eat these things. But anyways, old man Jedidiah, he made this monster when he was in his youth, and all the neighbors and stuff saying, "Oh, you don't go by there because he'll release the monster out at you and he'll eat you or something." And all the kids were scared and all that kind of stuff. And then old man Jedidia, you don't even want to know. He was crazy. He didn't even shave like every morning. He let it grow out like a beard, and occasionally shaved for like a job interview or something. I don't know, but he was a weird man, and he didn't have a wife. Nobody knew what happened to his wife because they say like he killed her or something and fed it to the monster, Billy-bob Bill or whatever his name was. But anyways, one day he went outside and his scarecrow. He had a scarecrow, like I said earlier, and he put out the scarecrow with a shirt on it and crazy stuff that sticks and hay should not wear, that they don't usually wear, which is unusual. And that's kind of scary. And not just to crows, but to people too sometimes, because it's a little creepy. But anyways, Billy-bob Jedidia, on his farm he ate corn and vegetables and stuff, and he said if any kids don't eat vegetables, I'm gonna plant them in my garden with all my vegetables, and I'm gonna eat them all, and I'm gonna feed them to my monster Bobby, Billy, Bill, whatever, and stuff like that. It was really weird and creepy. Everybody was scared of Mr. Jedidia. They called him Old Man Jedidia, but a few people had respect for him enough to call him Mr. Jedidia, because one time he was normal, like he was a normal guy. Everybody was like, Old Man Jedidia. No, they weren't like that. They were like, hey, Mr. Old Man Jedidia. And Mr. Jedidia was like, hey, kids, because he was just a regular guy back then. But nobody knew that in the future people would be like, oh, Old Man Jedidia, you know. No, people didn't expect that because they thought he was a pretty nice guy. But anyways, one day, Old Man Jedidia, we was on a walk, and he started walking fast, and he felt like a kid again. He started getting, just getting energy, and he started walking, and he was breathing heavy, and suddenly he breathed, and he had a heart attack, and he died. It was terrible, but at the same time, it wasn't so terrible because the kids didn't like him. They said all that mean stuff, so it was kind of awkward between the kids and the parents, and the Old Man Jedidia's loved ones that came along later on. They just didn't visit him as much, so nobody noticed. And the paper boy came, and he said, "Oh, Jedidia, I knew him pretty well, and I gave him his newspapers every day, and Old Man Jedidia, he died." And all the kids, they're just like, Old Man Jedidia. But anyways, what happened after he died? Everybody like, oh, what happens if you go in his house? What happened was, some kid was like, hey, I dare you to his friend. He was like, hey, I dare you to go into Old Man Jedidia's old house and stay the night there for a whole night. And anyways, he went in there and he brought a sleeping bag and a tent and stuff, and he slept in the living room of Old Man Jedidia's house. What happened was, late that night, he heard a banging at the door, and he got scared and stuff. And then the door opened. It was, and the door opened, and this guy came in. He was like, hey, kid, what are you doing? Spend the night in my grandpa's house. And he was like, what do you mean? He's dead. And he was like, yeah, well, you can't come in here. This is public property. This is private property. And the kid was like, oh, well, I'm sorry. My friend dared me. I don't care what your friend dared me. He said it was going to be alright. He said, no, it's not alright. Well, my father's dead, and people keep doing this. It's really stressful on me and my family, and miss our beloved grandfather, and we're gonna miss him, and you have no right to say bad stuff about my grandpa and and stuff like that. And the kid was like, well, I didn't know. He was like, yeah, get out of here, kid. Go away. And anyways, old man Jedidia's kid, he they decided to sell the house, and it didn't go up for auction. It didn't sell or anything, and nobody bought it. And eventually, because it was so big, and they didn't know how, like, why it was so freaking big. It's a big house, and nobody could afford it. So what happened was they just demolished the house, and they flattened the farmland and the corn, and they took away the scarecrows, and they made it into a lot where like 3 or 4 houses could be. They built those 3 or 4 houses, and other families moved in, and old man Jedediah was never forgotten. They just thought, like, man, old man Jedediah was actually a nice guy, but we misjudged him. Really, we didn't know. And that's the story of old guy, the poor lonely man that nobody really liked, but he went out every day, got his newspaper, and it was just crazy sometimes. And yeah, that's the end.